Hey, how's it going? This is something I've been wanting to do for a bit. Because I write horror. I do horror board games, horror RPGs, and all these kinds of fun things that I think everybody should get into. But there was something that was kind of bugging me a bit. There's so many people using the words slasher to describe certain movies or characters, and I don't see it that way. Um, I think there's a real distinct difference, and that's kind of the thing I want to talk to you about. Is that difference? So first off, we're going to talk about. Well, let's discuss the things we won't be talking about. We're not going to talk about mass murderers. Those are the people that go in, kill a bunch all at once, and then that's it, done. Same thing with spree killers. Spree killers are uh, more impulsive, where they, let's say, start off in one area, drive to another, and keep going and going for a little bit until they're eventually caught. Same thing with contract killers. We're not going to talk about those either. This is strictly going to be about the idea of the slasher versus the traditional serial killer. They do have some things in common, but I think there are important differences. And I'll try to put pictures or something up here to make it look pretty. Um, so let's start off with the definition. And your serial killer, your average serial, I say average, right? But your serial killer does kill two or more different people. Usually it's on separate events, unlike the mass murderer or the spree killer, or even the contract. It can go through days, months, sometimes years in between events. Let's see. The victims usually share the same type of characteristics, and whatever they happen to be. Maybe if you saw the recent Dexter Resurrection, uh, Rapunzel only killed people that had a ponytail, right? That was his thing. So they had that characteristic involved. There's some kind of psychological gratification to it, and that's a really important distinction between the serial killer and the slasher. Is that the serial killer has a psychological motive to it, whether it's uh, to feel closer to somebody they lost, or they feel like they're getting revenge on somebody that hurt them by killing these other people that looked like them. Some reason, something in them has a joy they feel when they do it because of, well, a connection to, again, the victims that have the same characteristics. Now, the motives, as we said, the motives for the serial killer are going to vary widely. Same things with the weapons. Whatever they're using, it's going to be different. You don't know. Maybe they strictly only use a wood chipper. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. But it's possible. Anything's possible, really. Um, but yeah, so that's the serial killer. Kills two or more, separate events, spanning days, months, sometimes years. All of the victims have similar characteristics. Psychological gratification, motives, and weapons are varied. Cool? We got that one down. Now, the slasher. The slasher is real similar because, again, they'll probably kill two or more different people. Hopefully, if you like the movie enough. The victims do share the same or similar characteristics, but they're most often just teenagers. See the Jason Voorhees kind of a thing, Freddy Krueger style. They are going to be separate events, right? Hence the different movies and all, and that can sometimes span in between years as they go. And one of the other differences is they are going to show you some kind of traumatic backstory usually. And we'll go into some of the famous serial killers, and we'll talk about the famous slashers as we're going, and that's where we'll put all the pretty pictures and junk up here. Okay? So let's see. Now, a slasher is usually where the serial killer's weapons can vary and change. The slasher typically prefers something with blades and melee weapons. Yeah, we know Jason's picked up different objects. Heck, he's picked up people in sleeping bags and used them as weapons. The slasher usually has a more confined or a controlled setting. Now, is that because it's the creature, character, etc., or is it just because the movie, needs to take place in a small area? That's up for debate. But a serial killer can, as I'm sure you're aware, stay in a localized area, or they can travel across the globe or across the country. Either one. Now, the biggest change, the biggest difference that separates a slasher from a serial killer, supernatural elements. Okay? And I will argue that there are some quote-unquote slashers that did not start out that way. They started off as serial killers. And if we want to do deep dives into each one, we can. I'm happy to do it. I like doing it. It's what I enjoy doing. Is talking about this stuff. But to help with some clarification, we're going to go over a few of your more famous serial killers. We'll talk about them, give you a little bit of backstory. And again, if you want to go into deep dives on any of these, just let me know. But one of the most famous and considered to be one of the first actual serial killers was Elizabeth Bathory. And yes, I am self-serving with this because she is in the Slaughterville board game, but she is in as a serial killer, not as a slasher, because, well, in the game she's a slasher because she has that supernatural element to it. But here, she was called the Blood Countess. She was a Hungarian noblewoman, lots of money, but she was believed to have killed around 600 people. Most all females, as far as we know, but they don't really know exactly how many. So it could be a lot more, could be a lot less. But here's the kick in the junk: she was never convicted, no crime, none. So that was kind of weird. There was also one, Belle Gunness. She killed about 40 people, and I say about because again, this was back in the 1800s. Early 1900s, so it's hard to get accurate measurements from back then. But what she used to do is, it's really kind of diabolical. She used to write columns in the newspaper because, well, that's what we didn't have internet in the early 1900s. And she would lure these guys out to her farm, where whether they were there as a hired hand or something else, she would then kill them. So yeah, that was kind of neat. And most people know H.H. Holmes. He did the Murder Castle in Chicago. That was actually pretty cool. I was planning on putting the Murder Castle as a location in the game, so I was looking into him pretty heavily. But it's another one where he's a serial killer. Again, he has a real wide range of how many people they assumed that he killed. It says he admitted to about 27 of them, but it said it can go anywhere from 20 to 200. Now, that's kind of a gap to me, But, yeah, he was called the Beast of Chicago. So that was pretty cool. Now we all know Jack the Ripper. They say he only killed 5. Some say more because they say he got away. That's kind of a tricky one. Let's see. I don't want to go through all these. We know John Wayne Gacy dressed up as the clown Pogo or Patches. Said he killed 33 young men and boys in his home. Jury found him guilty, and he was executed through lethal injection. Again, could Gacy become a slasher? That would be an interesting one. Again, they say some of these say they're slashers. But they're not. I firmly believe that they're not. One is from the Collector series. Well, it's the Collector. His motivation seems just that he enjoys torturing and mutilating people. Sets up traps, watches them work through the maze. Another one, if you ever saw the movie Thanksgiving, there's a guy in there named John Carver. Okay, so he wears a John Carver mask, this guy, and a pilgrim costume, and he has an axe, right? He killed people because his girlfriend was killed. Here's the thing. He was a human. right? He was alive when he did this, so there was no supernatural element to it. So people keep calling Thanksgiving and other movies like this a slasher movie, but it's not. As far as I know, there was no sequel to it. Don't quote me on that, but I never really saw one. There was another one, the Urban Legend Killer. Urban Legend. And again, anything, it's going to be spoilers because, well, I just don't care enough not to do that. But if you don't want to see spoilers, yeah, it's been good seeing you. But after losing her boyfriend, that these girls caused a car crash, and it killed this girl, Brenda's boyfriend. Well, she became a serial killer. And again, they call her a slasher. They call it a slasher movie, but it's not. She is a serial killer because she has the psychological gratification of getting revenge for her boyfriend's death, and it's against a specific group. Yes, that's those specific people, and yeah, that was pretty much what it is. And now she did have a unique thing where she recreated urban legends in order to take out her victims, but again, that goes against the slasher thing of just using the bladed weapons. But I mean, yeah, again, Jason does that too sometimes. So we're gonna be a little more forgiving with it. Let's put it that way. Oh, there was one I heard that was actually kind of cool that I didn't get to see. I just learned about it, called Behind the Mask. I don't know if you've seen it. If you've seen it, tell me if it's any good so I can know whether or not I'm wasting my time. But what it does is it starts off like a documentary following a serial killer. And it tries to explain how serial killer tropes happen in movies. But it turns out, well, this person was actually bringing people to become a victim. There was another, and this one is kind of debatable, okay? And I actually have it here. Is Megan a slasher, a serial killer, or something else? Because I'm not 100% on this one. Yes, she's, I don't want to say alive, but it's an AI robot thing. She's definitely a killer, that's a given. But I don't know if it's a slasher or not, because unlike Chucky, she's not actually alive, it's just AI. And as we all know, I mean, it was obviously exaggerated and stylized, but I don't think there's a supernatural life element to it, in that it's just a program that went wrong, or right, depending on if you like the movie or not. Let's see. Now, there are some, actual slashers, and one of them is from In a Violent Nature. His name's Johnny. Johnny's supposed to be just like Jason, pretty much. Ruthless, relentless force in nature, rises from the grave. There's your supernatural element. And he's looking to find his mother's stolen necklace and kill anyone that tries to stop him from doing it. But what was neat about this one is that it was told from the slasher's perspective rather than the victim's. So I heard it's pretty decent. I didn't get to see it yet. Now, of course, Jeepers Creepers, right? The Creeper is an actual slasher kind of an entity. He could be categorized here in our little experiment, because he's a killer. Goes every 23 years. There's your schedule, right? Eats people for 23 days, but it has a certain characteristic to them, in that he needs them in order to extend his own life. But he definitely has supernatural powers like flight, strength, and so on. Maniac Cop, I have not seen since this sucker came out on VHS way back, okay? But I don't think in the first movie it would be classified as the slasher, and we're going to get to a lot of that stuff. Because he's not undead until, well, the later ones. Do I say he was a good guy? Oh my God, no. He was a cop, mutilated, left for dead by other inmates because he was in prison for police brutality. So he completely deserved what he got. It's just, he ended up killing a bunch of people then. And again, he in the second and third movie, from what I understand, he came back from the dead, and you know, so that's where it would turn into slasher territory. The Tall Man was one of my first, not my first. Jason was my first. Well, technically Pamela Voorhees, but the Tall Man came shortly after from Phantasm. I always thought that was cool with the little balls, and I always thought it was cool. But the Tall Man was a scientist from the Civil War, travels through time and space with a machine that he created. Right, that in itself is not. It would be more science fiction-y. But what happens is during his travels, he becomes pretty much immortal, and the traveling turns him into some kind of evil entity, where he goes to all these different towns and just kills everyone so he can turn them into zombies. So that is a form of. I mean, if we're doing a broad classification of what the slasher would be, definitely the balls had the bladed weapon thing going. He has the supernatural element, but there's more to him, and it's more nuanced than what it is. Now, Victor Crowley and Hatchet, yeah, come on. I mean, that's a given. Thomas Crowley was married to this girl who was dying, but he was kind of a jackass, and he cheated on her with this other girl named Lena, right? So the guy's wife discovered the affair, cursed the baby, and the baby was Victor. Thomas hid Victor, but he loved this kid. On Halloween night, some kids decided to try to freak Victor out, scare him, try to get him to come out of the house. They caught the house on fire. Victor's inside, all trapped, and it's not going well. Thomas comes there trying to save his kid, right? Hacks through the door, didn't know the kid was laying against the door, trying to push through it, and ended up killing the kid. But Victor came back as a vengeful spirit, stuck on the night he died. So he started killing people that came into the swamp. And there you have your supernatural, you have your bladed weapon with the hatchet that they tried to get through the door with, and you have the confined space, the locale of the swamp, and you have the type of victim is anybody that comes into the swamp. So yeah, there was that. That's pretty much what we have for those. So again, those that is my main classification for them. Is again, I can't in good conscience call things like you talk about Jason. Jason is the slasher everybody thinks about. But in the first movie, of course, the mother wasn't one. She was a killer. She would be not a serial killer because it only happened on that one night. So she would be more of what would you say, a mass murderer? That's what I would say. So she definitely falls into that category. Now, here's the thing. They say Jason was not undead until, I think, part 5. But if he was really there all that time, there's two actual theories. One is that he survived his drowning, ended up living in the woods alone, and surviving on, bugs, small animals, whatever he could get, garbage, and so on. And that he did not come back from the dead until part 5. But then there's others that are saying, well, look, he was hung. It looked like his neck broke in the one movie, but then he grabs it, pulls it up, and is able to come back from it. So they're saying that he, yes, did survive, but might have died later as he grew older, or he died right away and the body advanced, much like in some of the others. So that's a tricky one. Only because I don't know. I would say Jason himself. And again, some are saying that the end scene of the original Friday the 13th, where Jason comes out, grabs her, and pulls her under, they're saying that was a dream sequence. Didn't happen. I don't know. Only they would really know, and I like the mystery of it anyway. But it is clear when, after Jason was killed, buried by Tommy Jarvis, they came back, stabbed lightning hit, Jason comes up, fully rotted out of the grave. That is definitely one, without a shadow, that's when it goes from serial killer to slasher. But was he a, again, not counting the one where it wasn't Jason, was he a slasher before then, or was it a serial killer motif, however you want to say it? So that's up for debate. Now, of course, Freddy was a serial killer when he was alive. He has the psychological trauma. He has the reason for doing the killing, the gratification for it. He obviously likes the bladed weapons, right? So he only becomes the slasher after death. He has the confined setting, which of course is the dreams, right? So it's not a physical location, and even though the dreams can be vast, this is more meant to be confined, as in a certain realm or a certain method that he's only able to get at the victims. But if you have any other favorites and you wanna share them out, or if you want to go into a deep dive on each one of these or different ones, just let me know. It's what we do, right? All right. Thanks again for stopping in. I'll catch you on the next one. And any questions, let me know. We'll see you.